OK, let's go back to this weekend's big story now, the Irish decision to ratify the Treaty of Lisbon. The UKIP leader, Nigel Farage, is with us now. Nigel Farage, welcome. I know you're just back from Dublin, where you've been spending UKIP money on leafleting people. You resent it when the European Union pokes its nose into the affairs of Britain. What are you doing poking your nose into the affairs of Ireland?
Well, we did it as a group in the European Parliament. There are 9 different nations that make up the Europe of Freedom and Democracy group. We used European Parliament information budget money to put some messages out in Ireland. But, I mean, listen...
You can't see anything hypocritical in it, can you?
This was a pea shooter against a massive artillery barrage. The yes side outspent the no side by a factor of at least 10 to 1. I mean, and even the broadcasting standards. You know, both sides didn't get 50% each in the media. The whole thing was a travesty of democracy.
OK, but there was a general point I was making. If you resent Europe sticking its nose into our affairs, what are you doing sticking your nose into Irish affairs?
Well, because the Irish vote fundamentally affects how Britain is run. Because they have voted yes to this treaty, it looks like David Cameron's going to collapse on his promise to give us a referendum, and we find ourselves with yet more of our lives controlled from Brussels. I mean, the whole point about being in the EU is that other countries do have a say over how you live your life.
What if David Cameron doesn't give a referendum? I mean, what do you make of the Tory position at the moment?
Well, I mean, having seen David Cameron this morning and Eric Pickles earlier on your show, I mean, they just point-blank refuse to answer the question. It seems to me that they don't want to give a referendum. They haven't got the backbone to do it. There's clearly no principle as far as Cameron's concerned here. Our view is there should be. Our view is the British people must have a referendum. It can't be right that 3 million Irish voters decide the future of British democracy, and we're going to fight the next general election with 500 candidates saying the British people must have a free and fair referendum on their future.
But how can you do it if Britain has signed a treaty and all 27 members of the EU have signed a treaty? It's very hard to open up and unpick.
Well, the question needs to be a bigger question. The question needs to be, do we want to stay part of a political union or renegotiate a genuine free trade agreement, which, after all, is what people thought they were voting for back in 1975.
You've compared the Irish vote to a Zimbabwe vote.
Yeah.
What exactly was like Zimbabwe? Were there club-wielding ZANU-PF war veterans going around?
There was, as I said earlier, there were millions of euros of taxpayers' money being used to just plaster the place with pro-yes adverts. We had the Broadcasting Commission in Ireland.
You don't think the comparison to Zimbabwe was a tiny bit over the top?
Well, hang on. The Broadcasting Commission of Ireland said that in this referendum, just this one referendum, there was no need for the broadcasters to give equal airtime to both sides, and so we saw over 70% of the coverage going to the yes camp and not to the no camp, and we had politician after politician...
It's still not Harare.
Well, they told a pack of lies. They said that this treaty would in no way affect the Irish constitution, so they used taxpayers' money. They broke the law on broadcasting standards. I think the whole thing was an absolute travesty.
OK, you talk about television time. It looks like we're going to have television debates for the general election. You happy for them to go ahead without you playing any part?
No, UKIP came second in the United Kingdom in the last test we had, which was the European elections on June the 4th. We are clearly the 4th biggest party in the United Kingdom, and we should be involved in some way in those debates.
So what are you saying? You'd go to law if you weren't?
Well, I don't know whether we can. I mean, clearly with independent broadcasters, privately owned broadcasters, we couldn't. But, I mean, the BBC has a charter. Do we want to fight a court case with the BBC? No, I think we'd rather persuade you that we should take some part in these debates.
But do you believe you will ultimately be part of them?
I don't know. I mean, that's for you to tell me. You work for the BBC.
I work for the B in the BBC. I work for the broadcasting bit, not the C, which is the corporation.
I suspect... I mean, quite frankly, the way we were treated in the Norwich North by-election by the BBC was a disgrace. We were ranked with the others, when in fact we produced our best ever result. Please, if the Trust are listening to this programme, watching this programme, we should be a part of it.
I'm glad you realise it's not down to me. Nigel Farage, thanks very much indeed.